Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we are picking up our first of two project vehicles. Stay tuned. For those of you who regularly come to the channel, you'll know that we did talk about buying two new project vehicles, and that is still the plan. I had to re-record this because we had a lot of drama. So I was going to put everything in one video picking up both vehicles, but we had drama on the first trip down to Norfolk with the Discovery, and then we had drama picking up the second vehicle in Wales. So it's all to come. So we're going to do one big episode now, and that is the first vehicle we picked up in Norfolk. And then the next episode coming out later on next week will be all about the one we picked up from Wales, and it's worth a watch. So enjoy. Touch wood, we're making good progress. You know, the car seems to be relatively happy. I haven't really noticed anything that's worrying me too much. I say too much, it's a little bit twitchy still. I'm just getting used to the handling on those new springs. We did have some traction control cut in when I was going around a corner a bit too quick. That might just be the way it is, I don't know. We'll have to explore that a little bit more. Really happy with the MPG, 32 or 31.9 for a 3-ton truck's pretty good. It drives lovely. I mean, there's just no way you'd know that this car had done 204,000 miles unless you looked at the odometer, because the interior's clean, it runs and drives smooth. It really is impressive. We'll fire up and just keep going, see what happens. Right, we had an issue then. So what happened was, again, going around the roundabout, the traction control kicked in, and then the whole instrument cluster just lit up like a Christmas tree, and I lost all power, and so like basically rolled to a stop. But the weird thing was I had no power at all, so I couldn't even put my hazard lights on. Luckily, I don't know, this feels like intervention, but luckily there was a cone on the road literally next to where I stopped, broken down I guess. So I grabbed the cone, put it behind me by about 50 yards to try and stop anybody running into the back of me, because it was a really busy road, single file traffic. But the weird thing was I had no power at all, which didn't make any sense. So looked under the bonnet, thinking that maybe the terminals were loose, and in fact the negative terminal had come off the battery. And what had happened is the battery was not secure in its location. So that battery had obviously shunted over to the left when I went round the corner, and the negative cable had just popped off. I mean, that was scary, if I'm honest. That's on me, because I know for an MOT that battery's supposed to be secure. It wasn't secure when I went in and changed the battery, so I don't think I've got anything to secure it with, but that is something I'm going to have to do. So we are literally only a few miles. Oh, we've lost all our miles. Oh, what a bummer. So we've got about 30 miles to go. So I've drilled a couple of holes in the terminals, only about 10 mil deep, so not too deep. I've then opened up this terminal holder here, which I hate. I've tapped this on as much as I can. I've just put a screwdriver basically on the edge of it like that, and then given it a tap down so it's really firmly on the terminal. I'm now going to do it up, and then I've had to bend a washer so that clears that, and that will sit in there, and hopefully that's going to stop the terminal, or assisting with stopping the terminal from lifting up. Now I don't have what I need to stop the battery moving, so we're going to have to wedge something in here, and that is near a loom, so you don't want that moving around, because that's going to eventually start wearing a hole in there. So we've taken up the slack with a wooden block. It's not ideal because obviously the battery can still lift up and down, so it is dangerous, and it's definitely an MOT failure, but I can't see any way of actually getting it secured down without the proper bolts, because there's just nothing to bolt it down to. I can't even use some sort of strap to hold it down. So I've got a feeling that we've got a bit of a problem with either our yaw sensor or our sensor on the near side front wheel, because if you remember, and if I've got the footage, I'll show it to you, when we lost all power on the battery, that was really caused mostly because the car went into traction control mode on a tight right-hand bend, and it locked in the sort of the ABS, and it lurched, and I think that's what shunted the battery forwards and pulled it off the terminal for good. And I've been testing it, obviously, while I've been driving around, and I've been going around some roundabouts and things a little bit harder than I perhaps normally do. Not that much harder, but just turning in and stuff, and it keeps kicking in. It's not really super aggressive, but it does keep kicking in. So I want to make sure that that is sorted. So let's get into Bush. Let's get them to sort out our tracking and our camber, and then we'll get on the road. Well, folks, we are back in the Discovery 3 today. Now, we're still in Norfolk, so for those of you who watched the last episode, we did make the trip perfectly well, apart from the fact that I didn't tighten up the negative terminal on the battery good enough, and it wasn't secure. But I got round it, got sorted, and she's been good to go ever since. So we've still got a lot of miles to go, so we're not out of the woods just yet. We're going into the depths of Norfolk, and it's a friend of mine who's got a vehicle there that's for sale. Now, I've known about this vehicle for a couple of years. For one reason or another, he's now decided that it's time to move it on. I'll show you a picture of the vehicle now, and you'll see there it's in quite a state. So I've asked him not to wash it. He did offer to wash it before I came to look at it, and I thought, no, we're going to see it warts and all, because I want to do a little bit of a buying guide on this vehicle to give you guys an idea of, you know, what to look for if you're looking at buying a Defender, Land Rover 11090, or if you're thinking of exporting one. Certainly to America, there's some really important criteria you need to focus on to make sure that it gets through as it should. This thing's been out in the elements for 5 years, and that was the first time it got started, literally like last week, but apparently it started on the button, which, you know, I can believe. For 300 TDI, there's not much that's needed to crank those things into action. But it's the bulkhead and the footwells that I'm not keen on addressing. If they're gone badly, I don't want to get involved, I don't think, which is unfortunate, but it's just one of those things. Now, I have got some really interesting plans for this, which I'll go into in a future episode, because we need to go and collect our other vehicle first, and it all makes sense how they will intertwine if we do buy this one and indeed the next one, because obviously we've got to go and inspect them first. So that's where we're off to. We should be there in about 15-20 minutes. Oh no, half an hour. And then once we get there, I'll introduce you to Graham and I'll show you around. So, catch up with you in a minute. We're here. So, behind me, you can just see there is the potential project. And I just thought while I'm here, I'll go round quickly and just show you what I look for when I'm looking at a potential Defender, because obviously there's a lot of things on here that need to be right. And you've got to consider how much work there is involved in the vehicle as well. So I will show you the whole vehicle, but I'm just going to do some details now. So first thing I've done is get down here and look at the chassis number. So that is where your chassis number is. Now you can see there, you can barely see it. So what I'll do is I'll take a picture of it, and then I can use my filters in Photoshop or in the photo app to highlight that to get an idea of what it actually says. And then once you've got those numbers, you've got to match them with these numbers. So normally take the last 4 or 5, and that'll give you a good indication you're not looking at a variety of different Defenders in one shell. And then on the 300 TDI and on the TD5s, you also get a little chassis plate there. So you've got the number, chassis number there. So they all tally up, which is really good. And that's a good sign. Now this is a 300 TDI, and the other thing that I wanted to be sure of is that it wasn't a Discovery engine. And the main way you can tell that is by this airbox here. Now these are all really important things if you're thinking of exporting a Defender. So this is 25 years old, so this could be exported quite happily to the States, as long as it's all original. So you have to make sure that all the chassis numbers, and you have to have a chassis number on the chassis, it has to be stamped, so you can't send a re-chassised vehicle, they just won't accept it. This engine is the genuine engine. Now we've got the engine number, which is down here, look. You can just see there. Now I don't have the V5 yet because we've applied for it, so I can't check the engine number against the logbook, but that can be changed if it needed to be, as long as it's period correct. So yeah, we do have a genuine Defender 300 TDI. If it wasn't genuine, then the airbox would be a plastic airbox over here, or they might have moved that over here. This is the correct layout as it should be. 300 TDI, it's been stood, like I say, for 6 years, and it's been out in the weather. And I asked him not to clean it because I wanted you to see it as you might see one. Now, this area here, obviously on the bulkhead, is something we're going to have to look at. So you can see here, look, it has gone through. That could be patched. Now, if the rest of the bulkhead's bad, it would be worth considering a new bulkhead. So if we look under here in our map, take that out and have a little look under here, and that's actually quite nice to see. So we've not got corrosion on the footwell. Really nice, because generally the water would run down from that hole in the bulkhead and just rot, because this is aluminium and that's steel behind here, and that's okay. So that's really good to see. Now, although Graham's really a specialist when it comes to air-cooled V-dubs, he does know quite a bit about these Land Rovers. So he's basically told me that the outriggers have been welded. So you can see that's an outrigger there. That's had some welding done on it. These, although they look bad, it's mostly surface. So that's still really solid. Obviously checking around these mounts as well, where your shocks mount, that all looks good. The spring hangers, again, they look solid. They tend to go in the corners here. There's a lot of life in that there still. Now, there's quite a bit coming off that, but it is still solid. Now you can just see down here where the bulge is on the rear cross member. That's had a new replacement cross member. We just call that a rear. It's not a third chassis, which would go all the way along here and include the spring hangers and weld just over here. So it hasn't had that, it's just had the rear. Again, you just look at it mud really. So these can be super scary to look at, but once you get, I mean, obviously you need to get permission to do this. You can't just go around someone's Defender with a screwdriver and hack away at the chassis. It's not fair. But I've had permission and he's all right with it. So this is wax oil on there, look. So ideally, if we were to take this on, the whole chassis would have to be chipped back and treated, because otherwise, you know, it's just going to get worse and worse. Moving on, cappings. Oh dear. So we've got a lot of filler in here, and that's rotted. But these are replaceable and they're not that expensive, and you can also get galvanized ones, as you saw in our last build. So again, it's just money at the end of the day. I mean, we take the roof, the tub off anyway. So we take the roof, the sides off, get access to all this and replace it, and they're not expensive to put on, and they make such a difference to how good the vehicle looks. Back door doesn't look too bad. I'm not going to open it because I'm going to get killed by a load of tyres. Everything else looks all right. Now, we know it's had a chassis on the rear. We know it's had a rear cross member. So we don't really need to poke around with that. But just giving it a little prod is always a nice idea. Again, as long as you've got permission. So going around this side, this is where it gets a bit nasty. We've got a nasty dent here. I didn't know about this. He did try and take some pictures to show it all, but that didn't come up. So that has been filled again and again. So that's not great. There's a lot of filler down here. Now, I don't know what I would do with that. There's a potential, because replace that whole skin, again, you can buy that panel. It's just a lot of work to get it off. Obviously, if we're going to take the roof off and the sides off, we could take the cappings off. It's just spot welds. We'll peel it off and put a new one on. Or if you've got another tub or if you want to put a high cap on the back, you can do all these things because it's just a Meccano kit. Now the doors I'm not interested in because they would always need changing, so they are rotten. They're not great, but that is something that I would change anyway. Now the weird thing on this is it's actually got a 200 or a TD5 wing on the side here. Now I think that's just because it's needed a new wing. It's possibly when it had the damage, because you can see here we've got damage on the door, damage at the rear, and this has been replaced. So I reckon it's had a little side swipe and possibly had a new wing, but that's what concerned me. I wasn't sure whether or not it was a genuine 300. So let's have a look in here. So we're at the front now, and we've got our hangers for the springs. We've got the mounts. Again, it's just surface rust. Down here, these, I think these have been replaced, but not very well, if I'm honest. We're starting to go in there, so we might have actually, so you can see all this coming off here. This footwell has gone, unfortunately. I'll have a little look inside now and see. Right, can't get the door open, so we just have to go in this way. Right, I've got my torch. That's obviously something you need to take with you, and you can just see down here. In fact, if I just switch the torch to the end there, I think that footwell's going to need a repair. We just can't get into it, that's a shame. So the dash actually isn't too bad. We've got a little bit of damage here, but that could be filled and repaired. Don't have any splits or cracks on there, which is really nice. This is all straight, not cracked or broken, so I don't think that's been apart at all, which is really good. So the interior wise, pretty good. Not loads of wear on the steering wheel. Loads of condensation. This is Graham.
Hi.
So yeah, I mean, as you'd expect, it's had filler on the front here, but we did do some pretty good work on the last one with the wings, so that wing's probably okay. Don't think that's awful. And these are straight, which is nice, so it's not had any damage at the front there. This is all pretty straight. Obviously the bumper's an easy thing to replace, not a problem. As far as the bulkhead goes on this side, I'm not going to poke that, but that'll be a hole behind there. But again, the nice thing is these A-pillars that come down, oh, you've got a bit there, look, that's gone. Yeah, so we've gone on that side. So potentially she could be grateful for a new bulkhead. But you can see here, this is the original seam on the bulkhead corner, so that's not had a repair. That's how it comes out of the factory. So actually not as bad as I might have thought. Other place to check, around here where your vent flaps are, they do tend to corrode in these corners, and these are all solid. So again, it just looks far, far worse than it is. I mean, cosmetically it's hideous, but you know, it's pretty sound, if I'm honest. It needs a lot of work doing on the chassis, cleaning it up. So another indication this is a military vehicle is it's got the wheel carrier on the bonnet, and generally if these have been abused, there's a load of damage on here. Now this has sunk a little bit, but I reckon that would knock out quite easily. So the bonnet's actually not in too bad a condition either. It's fairly straight at the front. The roof, I think that's okay. Roof rack, beautiful. So let's have a little look. So what are we going to bid on this? I've made Graham an offer. He's going to have a little think on it, because there was a few things on there that are going to cost me quite a lot of money to get done because I can't do them myself, like the welding, sorting the chassis out, and it's a big project, if I'm honest. So I just want to be sure that it's worth doing. So I'm going to basically have a think about it. He's going to have a think, speak to a few people. I've done a deal on it getting delivered to the garage which the last one was done at, which is local to here, and they'll just get it safe to drive back to Liverpool, and then we might be able to do a deal. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed seeing around that vehicle. It would be a really great project vehicle if you could get hold of it, but you're going to have to wait, I think, possibly another 24 hours. If I can get an answer out of him sooner, I'll let you know. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.